All aboard the Redzone Express!
Oh god, there's the Redzone Express! We gotta catch that thing. But wait, is that a woman tied to the rails up above?
I have to use the bathroom!
Okay, but make it quick!
Okay, I'm done!
Oh god, I gotta catch this train. My mom's gonna kill me! Oh, thank god, we're here. One of the things that I love studying before a fantasy football draft is sleepers, the value picks, the players that people are saying won't be good this season, but you think have a lot of potential. This edition of the Redzone Express, we're going to be talking about sleepers, first at the quarterback position. Now, in our last edition of Redzone Express, I said that I really like mobile quarterbacks, and I said Cam Newton was my stud. Now, this player is kind of similar to Cam Newton in the fact that they both had the same amount of rushing touchdowns. They both had 6 rushing touchdowns last season. Cam Newton probably in the 6th round, you could take him. This guy, my sleeper, you can get in the 10th round. That would be insane. Who am I talking about? Dak Prescott. Yeah, the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. The Dak attack. Yeah, he lost Dez Bryant. He lost Jason Witten. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on him for that reason. He doesn't have the same receivers. But I'm also thinking that he doesn't have the pressure of satisfying those egos in the receiving core. Now he can throw to the open guy. He can make the right decision. And let's think about this. If the Cowboys don't trust who they have at the receiver position and they go run heavy, that might bode well for them because remember back to 2014 when the Cowboys ran the run-first offense with DeMarco Murray and Tony Romo. Tony Romo had his best fantasy season by far in 2014. I'm expecting Dak Prescott to still run the ball and throw touchdown strikes, and he is my sleeper at the quarterback position.
You know, when you have a good running back on your team, your quarterback's going to thrive. I mean, that's just how it goes. I think I'm going to relate to you a little bit in terms of, you said that Dak isn't really a mobile quarterback, but this guy who my sleeper is can really run the ball. And I don't think this guy gets a lot of credit because his name is sort of being forgotten because there's a certain somebody who was drafted to his team this offseason.
Oh.
I'm talking about Tyrod Taylor on the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield.
Talk about one of the most reliable guys when the football is in his hands. The guy never turns the ball over. I mean, when he was in Buffalo last year, he only turned the ball over 4 times.
That's amazing.
4 interceptions in 15 games. Just to put that into perspective, Tyrod's been on the Bills for 3 years, and in that span, he only turned the ball 16 times over to the other team. Now, to put that into perspective, last year's quarterback, Deshaun Kaiser, had 22 interceptions in 1 year.
Oh.
So you're thinking Deshaun Kaiser was a turnover monster, and on the flip side, you have Tyrod Taylor, who refuses to turn the ball over. That's a huge difference. And nobody's giving Tyrod enough credit going into this fantasy season because of Baker Mayfield, who's drafted number 1 overall.
Of course.
And everybody's thinking, when's it going to be Baker's time? I believe that Tyrod is going to be playing most of the season, if not all of it, and he's going to be having a much bigger fantasy year than he did in Buffalo because he's got guys like Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon, and Carlos Hyde at his disposal. I think he's going to have a very big fantasy year.
Yeah, and Jarvis Landry has already echoed his praise. He says that Tyrod Taylor should be the starting quarterback. That's great to hear from your potential number 1 receiver going into a new season with a new team.
Completely agree. I think if you get him in round 12, you'd be very, very lucky.
Especially as a backup. You got to think about a backup. He could be a good guy to have and to hoard. Okay, so moving into the running back position, there's a lot of running backs, but not all of them get the same amount of touches. A lot of running backs operate in committees. There's not the same workhorse, bell cow back that we've experienced in past years. So when you're looking for a sleeper running back, you're looking for one that might be vulturing touchdowns. You're looking for one that might be catching the ball out of the backfield for PPR points if that's what you're playing. And I think that the guy who I've got here in my sleeper kind of fits the bill for everything. My running back sleeper, he plays for the New England Patriots, and he's going to be a rookie. And he's going to be one that can definitely catch the ball out of the backfield. I'm talking Sony Michel. Because, well, he was drafted by the Patriots in the 1st round, a pick that a lot of people kind of questioned because his name wasn't really thrown around. He had a knee problem when he's coming out of Georgia that kind of turned teams away. But I love his potential because typically the Patriots work in a committee, but they lost Dion Lewis, and now they need someone to fill basically 60 to 70% of the running back carries They don't draft a running back in the first round. Bill Belichick does not do that unless he's got a plan for him. I think we got a plan, and we're going to see big things out of this guy, Sony Michel. And I think that you can get him in the 5th or 6th round with a really high ceiling, a guy that might not provide big numbers in the first half of the season, but towards the last half of the season, if you can save him or even pick him up off waivers if someone doesn't believe in him in the first half, he could be a potential sleeper this season.
Yeah, I think, if anything, he's going to be an excellent investment pick if he doesn't hit the ground running. So for my sleeper, I chose Chris Thompson out of the Washington Redskins backfield. Do you remember his name?
Yeah, he got injured towards the end of last season, right?
He did, but do you remember before he got injured,
I remember
he was the Redskins' best running back and receiver. So as a rusher, he was pretty good, but as a receiver, he had 39 receptions, 510 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 10 games. He was the Redskins' best receiving threat.
Yeah, he's a running back, but he plays like a wide receiver, which is great for fantasy perspective, especially when you're playing PPR.
Exactly. And I think he's kind of like that Darren Sproles type of guy. He'll rack in PPR points, and he can rush the ball for touchdowns as well. He had 2 of them last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his name is being forgotten just because the Redskins brought in Darius Geis in the 2nd round. I think that could be a bit of a smokescreen to Thompson, and you can get him for a very good value this year. He might go undrafted for all I know, but I think he'd be an excellent value somewhere around the 10th round of the draft.
Yeah, the 10th round would be a great spot to get Chris Thompson, because let's talk about Darius Geis. I looked on ESPN before calling you today, Scott, because I thought Darius Geis might be my sleeper. Darius Geis is actually rated above Derrick Henry, who I put as my stud.
Really?
So ESPN analysts say that Geis will be drafted in the 4th round. And if you can get Chris Thompson, someone who's definitely going to be catching the lion's share of the passes out of the backfield with a new quarterback who doesn't know that offense yet, talk about a security blanket. Chris Thompson, definitely a good sleeper to look for, not a bad one to have at all on your fantasy team this season.
I say, why take a risk on Geis if you don't know his results when you know that Thompson is going to be catching those balls out of the backfield?
I think, if anything, I would want to hear some reports on how he's healing and how, because it wasn't an ACL tear for Chris Thompson. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was a fractured fibula that ended his season prematurely last year.
Yeah, I want to know how that's healing, if he can still make the same cuts. If he's the same player that he was before and he's coming right back into it with a whole offseason of rest, I'm definitely thinking about drafting Chris Thompson, probably even earlier than the 10th round, just so nobody else takes him before me. All right, so now we got to look for sleepers for the wide receiver position. Every team has multiple wide receivers, and all the primary wide receivers are going to be taken in the first couple rounds. All the big elite guys, your Julio Jones, Antonio Browns, Mike Evans even on a bad team. A good receiver, though. So you need to find some value in the later rounds at the wide receiver position, especially if you're playing points per reception PPR league, because it helps out. So Scott, who do you have a wide receiver that you might take in the later rounds that you think has a high ceiling and potential to be a sleeper this season?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this guy just because I feel like nobody is talking about him. I'm going to roll back to the Tennessee Titans, and everybody's attention is on Derrick Henry right now, but nobody is talking about the 5th pick in the draft last year, Corey Davis out of Western Michigan, now a Tennessee Titan. He didn't have a single touchdown last year until the postseason, where he grabbed 2 against the New England Patriots, and in incredible fashion. They were both one-handed receptions in the end zone. Beautiful, thing of beauty. I think without Eric Decker or without DeMarco Murray, Corey Davis is going to see his name called a lot. I think Corey Davis's production is going to skyrocket, and I would be very, very shocked to see him being selected before the 7th round.
Yeah, if you can get a guy in the 7th round who puts up big points for you, you definitely are not going to complain. I think the Corey Davis's problem is he just needs to gain some confidence. He needed those touchdowns, and now that he ended his season with a big game against the Patriots, going into the next season, he's going to be a totally new player, one who's not afraid to be a bully at the wide receiver position. And now someone who I think has already bursted, but then their season got put on hold because of an injury, someone who definitely is not lacking confidence if he's looking at his stat line. From the Houston Texans in this corner, it's Will Fuller. This guy, his connection with Deshaun Watson, you cannot read the stat line. Listen, he was healthy with Deshaun Watson for only 4 games. In that 4-game span, he had 7 touchdowns. He only had 279 yards, which isn't phenomenal.
Wait, really?
7 touchdowns in 4 games, Scott. That's insane.
Oh, my God.
He was fantasy's number 2 scoring wide receiver during that time, and that was coming off of an offseason where Deshaun Watson didn't even know he was the starting quarterback. They didn't develop that chemistry. Now they're healing together. They're rehabbing together. and they're going to go into a season where they've studied the playbook together with Deshaun Watson as QB1 and Will Fuller right behind DeAndre Hopkins. Having DeAndre Hopkins on the other side of the field is going to take double coverage over there. Will Fuller is a speed demon. He's going to be ready to hit those long home run strikes. Deshaun Watson is a competitive guy, and I think Will Fuller, if he can stay healthy the full season, if I can take him in rounds 5 or later, that's a gold mine, in my opinion. Really looking forward to what this guy's going to do on the field for the Texans this year and hoping he stays healthy.
Yeah, if he stays healthy, he is going to be a home run selection. He's a fantasy demon, it seems like.
Okay, so speaking of demons, we all want to avoid our demons and leave them alone. And some players that we might want to leave alone this season, players that you just don't believe in, and because you have a reason or because they burned you before. Is there any players that you can think of that fit the bill, Scott?
Yeah, I can think of a few, but I think my number one avoid at all cost player is Amir Abdullah. And it's kind of sad because he had such potential on the Lions.
He did.
But this year he's going into a contract year, and it kind of seems that Detroit has already written him off. They already drafted Kerryon Johnson out of Auburn in the second round, and they signed 3-time Super Bowl winner LeGarrette Blount, and he's probably going to win the starting job. Let's not forget about Theo Riddick either, who is probably that Darren Sproles type of guy as well. That's already a very crowded backfield, and I just don't believe that Amir Abdullah is going to see the touches that he wanted to get last year. So that's why I believe Amir Abdullah is probably not the best choice of drafting this year.
Yeah, I don't see Amir Abdullah as making a whole lot of fantasy rosters, even benches. I would say that a lot of people probably don't believe in him because he's so injury prone, and the Lions haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher in like 10 years. The player that I'm also avoiding is going to stay at the running back position. Not one that hasn't experienced success before, but I believe is on the decline because of his age and just because of where his team is going. Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. 5 years ago, I would have drafted him in the first round when he's still playing for the Seahawks. Home run hits because he's getting a lot of touchdowns. He's a hard-nosed runner. But now he's 32 years old, and he doesn't have much to offer as a receiver. And in a team where now they have Doug Martin on the Oakland Raiders, and they got that new head coach, John Gruden. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
John Gruden. I love that spider tube banana, man.
John? Just that you? No, I tell you what, John Gruden.
How you doing, Troy O'Brien?
Holy cow, John Gruden. Well, listen, I love what you did this offseason because you went on and got these wide receivers, Jordy Nelson, Martavius Bryant, Ryan Switzer. Now, everything that says to me is that you're committed to passing the ball. And if you want to run the ball with Doug Martin back there as an insurance policy, I don't believe that Marshawn Lynch is going to get RB1 touches. And he burned me last year. I thought that offensive line was good enough to carry an older running back, but I would not draft Marshawn Lynch again this year unless I got some kind of crazy value and picked him up in like the 8th round. But I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, let me tell you about that Derek Carr, man. He's going to make the passing opportunities much better. Marshawn Lynch is going to be a beast. I don't know why you wouldn't draft him. Wow. John Gruden, what are you talking about?
John Gruden, did you just
get out of here?
Did you just? I think he just farted on the Redzone Express. Did you? Oh, Scott, dude, this Gruden is just farting in here. Scott, I'm out.
That is a really stinky stink, Mr. Gruden.
Oh my God, I'm out of here. I can't stand that.
I can't breathe. I don't even know if this is our stuff. I gotta get off.
I'm out.